Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday, and all of our guests today, including Shane Malloy, standing by from Hockey Prospects Radio, brought to you by the Alberni Power and Marine RPM Group, located in Port Alberni. Alberni Power and Marine is one of Vancouver Island's most trusted boat dealerships, the largest Mercury Marine dealership in Canada. Their service team just won, for the fourth consecutive year, a customer satisfaction index score above the national average. Make your appointment today for the 2022 boating season at albernipowermarine.com. NHL draft lottery yesterday. Montreal stays at number 1. Vancouver stays at number 15. The Devils, I thought they were going to win, move up to number 2. Here to talk about it from Hockey Prospects Radio, the author of The Art of Scouting, our friend Shane Malloy. Thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Gentlemen, how are you? I appreciate it. Disregard the Oilers jersey in the back. That was the first jersey I ever got to the first NHL game I went with my grandfather. So he bought me a little Wayne Gretzky jersey. So I've kept it all these years. There's no way it's getting over my big head, but I put it up on the wall in my office.
What era of the Oilers was that, Shane?
That was December 4th, 1979.
Wow. Ooh, so we're going way back.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Can the Canucks, we're switching gears here, can the Canucks get a solid prospect at number 15 in the 2022 NHL draft?
Well, I think they can get a very good prospect at 15. And when you look at, obviously each team doesn't tell you what the criteria is in many respects, but you can start to glean information based on, all the different types of media you get from them or any types of conversations that the media picks up. But when you look at the situation of you always want to go with best player available, what's on the board, and then what's in the farm team. And now we've seen the dearth of lack of prospects that are legitimate NHL prospects in the farm system. So I really start to focus towards defensemen, to be honest. When you look at Vancouver and what's coming through the pipeline, there's Jack Rathbone, and now there's obviously some concern about the continued development of Jet Wu, particularly what happened with him playing in the playoffs and being on the wing. And so that raises some alarm bells. So if legitimately your only prospect is Rathbone, my focus would be towards picking a defenseman at 15. And I think there's some defensemen in that range that would fit the criteria of what Vancouver would be looking for.
Now, you mentioned defensemen in that range at players who might be available at the 15 spot. We're talking about Kevin Korchinski, who plays down the road in Seattle, among others. All of them are, or most of them are, lefties. Canucks are in dire need of righties. Just your thought on that predicament.
Well, the other question you have to raise is what's the average time it takes for development of once you drafted a player till he is ready to play in the NHL? Not a cup of coffee, but when he's legitimately ready, that could take anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So what does this organization look like 3 to 5 years from now? Who's going to be on the roster 3 to 5 years from now? So that actually becomes more of a kind of a moot point, to be honest. And it doesn't have as much value or concern as it should. So I don't concern myself with lefty righty. I'm more concerned about, can you identify a player that can play more than 200 games in the NHL? And then where does he play in his prime years? Is he going to be a number 3 defenseman? Because if you're going to draft the defenseman in the first round, he needs to be a number 3 or higher, or you shouldn't draft him in the first round. So those are some of my internal criteria that I have when I'm building a list, is trying to understand what's the probability of that player playing 200 games, and then what's the probability of him playing where he plays in his prime years of his entire career, and then go from there. I worry about lefty righty when they're ready to play, not at the point where I'm drafting them.
Shane, the one defenseman the Canucks like a lot is Pavel Mintyukov in Saginaw, the OHL. 62 points, 67 games. They like him a lot. Is he going to be?
Shane, before we go any further, did he come close? Did he come close to getting that name right?
Mint Yukov.
No, but that's okay because I am notorious for butchering names on our show.
Well, that's why you and I get along.
We get along great. My co-host Brad Allen just giggles with glee anytime I try to pronounce a name. I'd even try to do it phonetically, and I still butcher it.
I'm the same.
Okay.
I've given up.
How do you pronounce it? Go ahead. Tell me.
I can't. Honestly,
okay.
Anyways, I butchered as bad as you.
Let's go with this first name, Pavel. They love Pavel. 62 points, 67 games, Saginaw OHL. Canucks really like this guy. Will he be there at 15?
I don't think so,
okay.
honestly.
That's what I was told. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think more likely you're sort of looking at what you had mentioned, Kevin Korchinski. Owen Pickering is an opportunity there. Kallio Delius, the Swedish defenseman that many people probably saw at the U18s. Those would probably be the three defensemen that I think will be in that range. Sam Rinzel, who is a high school player in the United States, has a lot of upside, but there's some risk in that because it's a longer development cycle. But so I usually sort of I'd focus on those three players. If defenseman isn't the way they're going to go, there's some forwards on the board too, but just because I'd be so concerned about the lack of defensive prospects in this system, that's the direction I would go in. And yes, I understand the value of best player available, but if you're in a grouping in that sort of like 12 to 17 range, and the Canucks are looking at that grouping and everything is pretty equal or pretty close to being equal, I'm leaning defenseman. One, it's asset value. Defensemen are always, especially if they're a top three defenseman, are always worth more than a second line forward, which is probably what you would get in that 15 spot if you're picking a forward. So you look at acquisition. How hard is it to acquire a top three defenseman? What's the cost going to be in acquisition of a trade or free agency? It's usually ridiculously high. So if you're going to get a defenseman, get him in the draft and then develop them. And that's been an issue with this organization for a long time, has been player development. They have not pushed players through. They have not. Well, there's no track record for that.
Another issue in Abbotsford is there's no good young drafted centerman there. And when I look at Miller, Pettersson, and Horvat, that's great. We don't know about Miller's future, is he going to sign or not. A centerman that I like is out of Winnipeg, Connor Geekie. He may or may not be there. I don't know. But what do you know about him?
Well, the great thing about him is he has size, he has hockey sense.
Yeah.
Yes. So you have a big body in the middle, but who has hockey sense and puck skills.
Yeah.
The only concern with him is his skating ability. Now, structurally, there's not an issue with his skating. It's just a matter of letting that big body develop out. And unfortunately, I have a concern with the player development department. And can they make him a better skater based on what his physique and biometrics allow him to do? Because you can't construct him into making him a skater like Quinn Hughes. That's just not possible.
No.
Just making him a better skater of what he currently is. He just needs to be an average skater in the NHL, and he'll be a second line center in the NHL, because he has all the other tools. So I align with you on having Connor Geekie if he's there.
Yeah. Because
this draft is primarily a lot of wingers. There are some centers in there, but if you're projecting a centerman to be a 1 or a 2, most of this draft is a 2 and a 3, then if the 2's available, you're going to jump on him. So he may be gone by the time they're picking at 15.
Any question, Shane Wright, with Montreal in mind, Shane? Any question?
No.
A lot of Shanes here. Any question he's ready for the NHL?
My only concern is games played. Because if COVID didn't happen and he didn't miss those games and he got 60-plus more games under his belt, then I wouldn't have any concerns. If you look at historical data, games played matters before you turn pro. You need to get enough reps in, particularly against an elite level competition. Do I think this young player has all the tangibles that you need, and his work ethic and his dedication to be a two-way 200-foot player, as people call it? No, I have no concerns. My concern is just about, I'd like to see a player be the man in their league for 2 years before you move on. So that's my only thing. Would I have an issue with them sending him back to Ontario Hockey League? No, actually, I would praise it. But could they put him into the NHL and find a way to insulate him as a third-line center? I think that would probably have to be necessary because I just don't like seeing kids thrown into the deep end of the pool with an anchor and saying, go ahead, kids, swim. Yeah. Because we've seen that work out badly for some organizations long term.
Shane, you touched on this. This has to be very quick, but are the Canucks in solid hands, maybe better hands with Rutherford and Alvin when it comes to player development?
I hope so. And that's to remain to be seen. I want to see who they hire and how many people they hire and what is their strategy for their player development, because it has to be overhauled. There's no evidence to support that they've been able to develop any players. All their successful players, other than Demko, who I'm not going to count because he's a goalie, all of them have been direct jumps, either from college or from Europe. So the player development department at the Abbotsford level or at the junior college level really wasn't involved. So there's no evidence to support they've done a really good job. And I think that has to be really assessed. There has to be a root cause analysis done of that department to find out what's going on and why. Shane,
long time no talk to. This has been great. Thanks so much.
Anytime, gentlemen. Next time I come into town, we'll have to sit on the patio and have some drinks.
Oh, anytime, big dog, anytime.
We'll invite Pavel.
Yeah, okay. We'll invite Pavel from Saginaw.
Thanks, Shane. Hey, he made a good point there about, and we went on about this yesterday, right-handed defenseman versus left-handed defenseman. The Canucks need right-handers now. But forget about that because you have to worry about 3 or 4 years down the line. That's you know, you don't know if Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a lefty, is going to be around. You don't know what their left side is going to look like. At that 15 hole, you would think, given most mock drafts, most projections, that it would be a left-handed defenseman if that's the way they want to go versus best player available to them. Just go for it and worry about left-handed, right-handed defensemen later on. Poll question next. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Donnie and Dolly, the team on Check.